So, good evening, friends.
Good
Um,
evening, sir.
there is a gap of, I believe, more than 3 to 4 months. We used to be there with all of you regularly, almost every week. But then there was a gap after this COVID. A lot of things were pending, so we, in fact, got too much of occupied in our day-to-day affairs. And now we have again decided that we all will remain connected with you all every week, either on Sunday or on Saturday. Uh, so we this time we are starting with the our favorite subject, which is the insolvency and bankruptcy code uh, vis-a-vis home buyers uh, problems. We have a lot of experience, and we have something like 17, 18 cases where a lot of home buyers are uh, uh, impacted adversely, and we are trying to find solutions for all of them. So today's focus is not on the process of insolvency. It is the comparison between the various other remedies available under other laws and the remedy available under insolvency and bankruptcy law. As far as the real estate cases are concerned, the where the home buyers are involved, they need solution, they need their home. However, the uh, in other law, we actually have, based on our experience, based on the experience of our partners, we have created the content this time so that we uh, compare between the uh, remedies and under what circumstances RERA is effective, under what circumstances consumer court is like uh, impactful, or in some cases maybe the criminal cases also become impactful. So we have been facing some difficulties in insolvency and bankruptcy law also. There are some issues which are not yet resolved, and some issues which are getting resolved. The problems that we have all faced, because the home buyers concept became popular only after the NCLAT judgment, when the home buyers were considered as financial creditors. Then everyone started filing the applications. Every home buyer started filing applications against the builders. So it was a chaos kind of a situation that maybe 100 applications are filed against Supertech and that kind of scenario. Then government uh, uh, came with an amendment with effect from 28th of December 2019, where they amended Section 7 of the IBC, and a proviso was added that if an application has to be uh, filed for insolvency of a builder company, then it should be filed by at least 10% of the allottees of that project, or allot 100 allottees, whichever is lower. So that amendment also, because this was an amendment basically dated 28th of December, and a lot of people challenged the virus of this amendment also, which has been recently decided in uh, which has been decided in Manish Kumar versus Union of India, that these amendments are all uh, legally uh, and constitutionally valid. We still have some issues which are unresolved. For example, like see, the major issue is that the delay in decisions in the matters of home buyers because of multiple applications. Whenever we are submitting a resolution plan to adjudicating authority, there are multiple applications which are filed by home buyers and other kind of disputes. So the NCLT is taking time in disposing of all the applications before the resolution plan is approved. So that has actually become a kind of deterrent, and the resolution plans are pending before adjudicating authority for longer. Uh, the other issue which is still not conclusive is the delayed filing of claims, and we have experienced that even the claims are being filed after the resolution plan is approved, and the adjudicating authority is still directing the RP to consider those claims, and accordingly the resolution plans are not really definitive, because see, although after that we have started managing in the other manner that we will discuss in this way. The other matter which is unresolved is the landowners dispute with the landowners. Uh, Although they have been adjudged as that they are operational creditors, but we are also sure that they will go to the NCLAT. In the case of Mr. Anand Sonbhadra, only in the case of Shubkamna Buildtech, we fought and we have gotten two orders, one against Noida Authority and the other is against Greater Noida Authority, and where it has been held that the land development agencies are operational creditors, and probably they will go for appeal, and that appeal is also pending before. In one of the cases, the appeal is pending, and in the case of Greater Noida, the appeal will be filed. We understand that. Also, there are some unresolved issues when the land is not owned by the corporate debtor. It is only a kind of a joint development agreement, and the corporate debtor is only having a right to construct, or you can call it as FSI sale. Those matters are also pending. Who would handle the land disputes with the land development agency? Although we are trying to find out resolution for the company which has taken amount from the home buyers, but the land development agencies do not recognize this particular company which has only bought FSI. That is also a kind of difficulty. In the resolution plans, the different home buyers, they were objecting to the resolution plan. However, that decision has recently come in the case of JP, and this judgment is dated 24th of March 2021, where it has been held that if the resolution plan is approved by home buyers, the small segments or specific to some different kind of towers or different kind of like profile funder, or those people would not have any right to challenge the resolution plan because that has actually been approved. So as you understand, in the home buyer, if 50% of the total allottees voted, 51% of the total, more than 50% people, in case they vote in favor of a resolution, that resolution will be considered as accepted. And those people who have not voted, they would not be considered as dissenting creditor. So this is also a very, very important judgment. The other thing which is like I have been saying in one of my cases, that the dissenting creditor like bank, in that case also it was ICICI Bank. ICICI Bank, if they dissent, they would be entitled to the payment. They would be entitled to payment equivalent to the liquidation value due to them. And that particular matter has been now decided by the Supreme Court. It is a similar matter. In that particular resolution plan, ICICI Bank was being offered some kind of plot or some kind of flats, but the Supreme Court has held that once a creditor is a dissenting creditor, it is required as per the law that the payment of his share of liquidation value has to be given to the dissenting creditor. He is not supposed to be dragged along in the resolution plan. So these are issues. Some of the issues are still pending. So we will come later to the insolvency. I will first ask Mr. Anand Sonbhadra that in case he would apprise us the remedies available under RERA. Once he finish, I will provide a 1 minute comment on that, and then we'll move on to the other remedies available to the home buyers under other laws. Mr. Anand Sonbhadra.
Thank you, Anilji. So quickly, let me take to the group a very good evening and welcome again to our webinar on solution for the home buyers, whatever is the best under different laws. And we are comparing. And the first one, as introduced by Mr. Goel, is RERA. So this is a specific legislation which was created in 2016, which was passed and which became effective 1st of May 2000. Basically, it is an act for three purposes: for promotion of real estate sector and to ensure sale of any real estate project in an efficient and transparent manner, to protect the interests of the consumer in the real estate sector, and also to establish an adjudicating mechanism for speedy dispute redressal. These are the three objectives with which RERA was introduced. I'll quickly run through one or two key definitions just for identification of identification that needs to be done with the home buyers. Basically, two definitions that I want to run through is one is that of allottee, which is defined by section 2D, and the second one is apartment, which is defined by section 2E of RERA 2016. So section 2D of the definition of allottee, it says a person to whom a plot, apartment, or building, as the case may be, which has been allotted or sold, whether freehold, leasehold, or otherwise transferred by the promoter, and would include every person to whom who subsequently acquired the said allotment through sale from the people to whom it was earlier allotted, and of course does not include any building, apartment, or plot given on rent. So basically, allottee here would mean a person to whom a plot, apartment, or building, whatever may the case, has been allotted. Now, we all understand plot. Building is a larger configuration. What does an apartment mean? So the apartment is where basically it's a, whether we call it by any name, block, chamber, dwelling unit, flat, office, showroom, shop, godown, suite, whatever name. If it is a separated, self-contained part of an immovable property, including one or more room or enclosed space, located in one or more floors or any part thereof in a building or on a plot of land, and intended to be used for any residential or commercial purposes, then that enclosed space is defined as apartment. Now let's quickly look at, having said who's an allottee and what is an apartment, let's quickly look at what are the rights that accrue to an allottee under RERA. So there are 5 or 6 key rights which the allottees are entitled to. One is a right to obtain information on the project, be it sanction plan, be it layout, be it specification, or approval by authorities. So if I am an allottee, I have every right to ask for and obtain. In fact, any project, which every project today has to get registered with RERA, they are supposed to actually host these information on the website. In case for any reasons, intended or non-intended, if it is not there, as an allottee, we have a right to ask. Also, there is an entitlement as a right to know the completion schedule. So one can demand stage-wise schedule of completion, including provision of utility, water, electricity, etc., that is need to be given. Then, of course, there is a right to claim possession of the apartment, timely possession of the apartment. In case if the possession is not being given, then there is a right to claim refund along with the interest. Many of the agreements between the allottee and the promoters may not have an interest clause. Then it can go to arbitration and the authority, the adjudicating authority, can decide. However, the right to claim refund remains. Also, right to have documents, which is primarily, the right to have conveyance deed related to that apartment or plot along with a common area. And another one which is rarely used, but however that right remains, is in case if any defect is found in the structure, then the builder may be imposed with a penalty to the extent of 5% of the estimated cost. These are the rights which can be exercised by the allottees. Of course, there are certain duties that as an allottee one has to perform. I'll just quickly run through them. You have to do your own due diligence in spite of the project being registered with RERA, etc. So one cannot say, I did not do my due diligence and that's why I've landed. So that is not the onus to do the due diligence on the project is duty of the intended allottee. Making timely payment as per the schedule of agreement. Of course, if there are delays, then it's there to pay interest. Also, once a possession is accepted, then to participate and get it registered is another duty which has been cast on the allottee, and to take possession. And one important one is also a duty to form association of the buyers. So they must, participate to ensure that an association for taking the charge of the running of the society is given to the association once the builder exits. Now, one of the key things that I wanted to say here, when is RERA useful? See, one needs to understand application of any law is contextual, and in that context, whether it's beneficial or not, RERA is very helpful, efficient, economical, only when the builder is continuing, he has money, he has the capability to complete the project, or he has the capability to deliver the promise or make good on the promise that he has made, which in the current environment, he may not have done it. Or the second option is the builder is not intending to complete. However, the association of the allottees intend and find that there is sufficient asset, and possibly they can apply to the RERA court and get a handover of the project to them. And I'll read those particular sections where the entitlement comes. They can try, take over the project and build it themselves. Of course, through the intervention of the RERA adjudicating authority. But if the project is stalled, there are disputes with the authorities or the payments of the authorities have not been made, there are GST and income tax litigation going on, and most important, the promoter doesn't have money, or he's not willing to complete, or he does not have the capability to complete. In those circumstances, even if you get an award from RERA court or RERA adjudicating authority, the ability of the promoters against whom that award is to be executed does not exist. So how will he honor that? What will a complainant under RERA be able to get? So execution of that order may become a difficulty. And then quickly, I'll just read through, because there are two parts, just two sections I'll read. Section 11(4)(h) of RERA clearly says that a unit which is already allotted on or an agreement to sell is there cannot be mortgaged by the builder. So that gives you a kind of a protection. And the second one, the more important, was Section 8 of RERA. Even in case of revocation of registration of a real estate project, the association of the allottees will have the first right of refusal to carrying out the remaining development work. So the second point that I was saying, if there is money in the project or there are enough assets in the project where the association of the allottees feel they'll be able to do it, then Section 8 empowers them. They can go before the authority and can possibly make their case. In absence of the positions that I laid out in the second part of my argument, that in case of the project is stuck, there is land authorities who are issued show cause notices for non-payment of dues. The builder is not willing or he's absconding. There's not enough asset in the project in terms of either money or unsold inventory, or there are other disputes which will create problems. Then the option remains to go through IBC.
Anandji, may I ask a question? May I ask a question to you? So, like, because what I understand is that the biggest benefit in favor of the home buyers is the order that they can take from RERA for getting the refund, and along with interest, and in some cases even the damages. We have listed some of the cases where even damages has been given.
Correct.
So these, it's like this is something which is very important that we should discuss with the participants today, and I would definitely assist you in discussing that. Now, see, this is the like there are so many cases here under RERA with the Piyush Height Resident Tower JK Welfare Association, Priority Agencies, Altus Space, Rosemary, Avinash. So I think the judgments are that they can hand over the project to association of allottees for completion and possession. So these are so many cases, and how you feel that it is not really better than insolvency and bankruptcy law. Like we all have to discuss, because see, when this allotment of association of allottee, if they can get the possession of the project, they can contribute their own remaining dues, and they can start the construction, complete it, and then they can definitely take the possession. So what are why do you feel that insolvency is better? Because that may take time, and the RERA may even give the order faster.
See, I'll just 2 points. One is the first part that you asked. We have listed so many judgments, and of course these judgments are to specific context and specific points that were raised in these cases. The sum of this is that the judgments have been given where the possessions have been ordered, interest has been given, in cases compensation also has been given. However, all this is good because RERA can give you faster, it's a timeline while it's more efficient and less expensive. But if the company and the promoters who are behind the project, they do not have enough resources or capability, whom do you execute against? So he may stand in court and say, I don't have money. Where will you get the money? So
very well, we have
seen in many cases.
Yes.
People have gone to the RERA court, and then the company went to insolvency, and we see so many people coming, filing their claim with the order, because these unfortunate claimants, in spite of winning an order from RERA court, were not able to execute them. Now, coming to the more crucial question that you asked, Mr. Goel, that even though RERA has that, association of allottees can take over, it is, to my mind and my experience, it is good only in limited situation where the company has enough resources and it's almost in the completion stage. Because when completion and distribution to the other liabilities, etc., happens under taking the project by the association of allottee under RERA, the protection that IBC gives to its resolution applicant, that is not available, which means you cannot, if the assets are not equivalent to the what do you call liability or assets are less than liability, there's no question, there's no way we can reduce the liability. In case if there are cases going on, the CD will never be, exempted or excused, and the cases can continue against the promoter. What is being given under 32A in
Anandji, I think
IBC.
we need to conclude now, and because of
Please.
what you have said,
For the two key reasons.
Yeah, these two, you have said two things, and I also would finally we would like to conclude based on our experience. Yes, the RERA can give us the order for refund, and along with the refund, they also can give us some interest, which in some cases has been 9%. In some cases, it has been even more than that. But I have heard the other day somebody was coming to Supreme Court that some order has been passed against a builder where the 18% interest has been given. The Supreme Court was not agreeing for 18%. So the most sustainable orders are where the RERA has ordered for the refund along with the interest, in some cases 9%, in some cases 8%, in some cases 10%. So this is something that every home buyer can get this refund order from RERA. However, these refund orders can only be effective in case the builder is able to give this money. Now the builder's situation is that in case they start honoring all these refunds, and then everyone will go to RERA and take an order, and then the builder will have to return the entire money which he has taken from the allottees, which he's already spent on partially on the construction and partially maybe on some kind of other ambitious project that he has in his mind. So the second very, very important remedy which is available is which is called in common language pool and construct. And that is something where the association of allottees, they actually come forward, they apply to the RERA that we have enough resources. Our balance outstanding amount is say 15 crores of rupees from the home buyers, and the construction that we can complete within 15 crores. And in case there would be any deficit, we will contribute from our side that deficit also. So we want that the possession and the construction rights may be given to us. So that is called pool and construct. And yes, this is a good remedy, but this is only practically beneficial in few cases. And what are those cases? One illustration, yes, the construction which is pending is only a minor part of the construction which is pending, and the dues from the home buyers are almost matching with the cost of construction. Then the association of allottees can definitely say pool and construct it. Somehow, in case there is a 5%, 10% deficit, in some cases, the home buyers can also say, okay, we will also contribute further and we would like to construct ourselves and we would like to get possession to ourselves. That is also possible. However, where in those cases where the building has not been even completed to say to even 50%, then the construction expenditure, the construction monitoring, the construction management would have to be very high, and that would not be possible for the allottee of associations to do that. In case that would be done, then again it would be considered as another builder, and which without much of stakes. So then it will become a cooperative society, and the disputes between in the cooperative societies are well known, and it is somehow very difficult that in case 300 crores construction is pending and the association who doesn't have any kind of infrastructure experience of building the multi-story buildings or even the row housing, that would be slightly difficult. Also, in various other cases, where the allottees are not giving money, so the builders have their own ways to recover money from the builders have their own ways of recovering money from the allottees. And in some cases where the unsold inventory is there, then whether the RERA can allow the association of allottees for selling the unsold inventory, that also has to be seen. The insolvency law, on the other end, would definitely fix priorities of the project, and the Supreme Court and various other judgments of NCLAT has already held that the completion of construction is the first priority, because that actually belongs to the home buyers. And then in case there is anything left, then we can talk about the other creditors, secured creditors, unsecured creditors, and then maybe government liabilities or even the land owning agencies. Now, in various cases, the disputes are that the lease is also cancelled by the land development agencies like Noida, Greater Noida, Puda, Huda, and also there are huge outstanding against land is due. And there are other companies where the land owners having some kind of share in the constructed space. In some other cases, there are a lot of attachments on the assets of the corporate debtor because of the statutory authorities. So all this is not possible in RERA to get waivers like the waiver of landowners due, statutory dues, license fees, EDC, conversion charges, market liabilities, and dispute with the, all this is not possible to be resolved under RERA. So RERA, according to our experience and our research, is only and only beneficial where the some little part of the construction is left and the home buyers are able to bring that much of money by way of pool. So that is what is called pool and construct. Thank you very much, Anandji. I think now we actually have to look into the other remedies available to the home buyers, because then finally we'll have to go to the insolvency law, how changes have happened in insolvency law, how this finally is emerging as the only way of resolving disputes of the home buyers. So we need to understand what are the other parts like the consumer protection, arbitration. So these are some of the civil laws which are being used by home buyers. So Mr. Umesh Goel, designated partner of AAA Insolvency, have actually done research on this consumer protection and also what kind of resolution are possible in the arbitration. So may Umeshji, can I hand over to you?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Please. Yeah, please appraise all the participants how this Consumer Protection Act or the other Arbitration and Reconciliation Act would help the home buyer, and under what circumstances these are better.
Good evening, all the panelists and participant friends. Consumer Protection Act 2019 is a rejuvenation of earlier Consumer Protection Act of 1986. It has been further strengthened, and whosoever is going to see this DD News and all those things, their computer screens use the word Jago Grahak Jago. So this is the legislation, a beneficial legislation in favor of the consumers, recognizing it very well that consumers are at a disadvantageous position vis-a-vis the supplier. And earlier the foreign nomenclature has been changed to District Consumer Disputes Redressal Commission. So the commissions are now at district level, state level and national level with multiple members. And the financial powers has also been increased substantially, where the amount of consideration is up to 1 crore. The transaction consideration, then it comes in the district consumer forum, then up to 10 crore state, and then beyond that it goes to national forum. The consumer commission, when someone is aggrieved against a judgment against a supplier, he can file his appeal, he can file his complaint before the commission, district commission, or the state commission or the national commission, depending upon the transaction involved. In most of the cases where the value of goods or services will be up to 1 crore, it will go to district commission as a person. Now, individual person can go or a group of persons can go. If a group of persons join together and file the application, then maybe that they have to go to state commission or national commission. And this provides a very, very beneficial position to the customers, to the consumers, that they can approach it beneficial. And there are many judgments which have very clearly established that even the agreements, these are the one-sided agreements decided by the builder on the heavily loaded in builder's favor, and the consumer at a disadvantageous position. For compensation in delay also, for providing the information also, all aspects are covered under the Consumer Protection Act. And like in the previous discussion under RERA, again, the main moot point here is if you decide to resort to Consumer Protection Act and get an order from a district commission or state commission or national commission. If the builder has the wherewithal to pay you the money, there is no challenge and it will be probably a very good forum. But if the builder is not able to provide you the money, then that will be the challenge. And here again comes the matter of solvency. If the solvency is not established, then there is no point of going to Consumer Protection Act, because there will be similar cases. One consumer can come with an order to be served on him and he will again say, the builder will say, I have no money. So it again does not augur well that for problem in agreements and non-delivery of apartment by the builder within the agreed timelines as per the specifications, whether a solution can be attained under Consumer Protection Act. If there are some miscellaneous issues, then definitely one can go to Consumer Protection Act. And in this case of Brigadier Kamal Sood versus DLF Universal, that NCDRC held that unfair trade practice on the part of builder to collect money from prospective buyers without having obtained the required government permissions, and cannot use the same as excuse for delay in delivering the possession, because the bookings has been done even without taking permissions for the project. And in the similar case, the builder blames to a situation where construction got delayed on account of delay in approval of building plans. The point is, when the building plans were not approved, how the project was launched. So there are such cases, and Consumer Protection Act, when such big issues are involved, does not provide a good solution, and the solution is to be sought where if the builder is not having the solvency, builder is not able to meet the commitments for any reasons, for diversion of funds or other reasons, then it becomes a really challenge that even if you get an order, the builder will not be able to honor it and end up in the resolution. So this problem is to be diagnosed, and then only one to decide a course of action. Consumer Protection Act may be a very good forum for disputes resolution where the stakes involved are not very high. One can resort to it. And the second aspect comes the Arbitration and Reconciliation. Arbitration and Reconciliation Act.
So, Goel Saab, I think we have to just let us conclude. According to you, what are the circumstances where the home buyer should use the Consumer Protection Act as against RERA and as against IBC?
Only on the miscellaneous cases where you find some deficiency, you got the apartment and you find that they have charged extra, they have delayed the construction, they have utilized force majeure clause for not paying the concession, miscellaneous matters. In that case, you have the flat with you and then you go to Consumer Forum for claiming the damages and whatever has been charged extra or not paid properly for the compensation, then you can approach the Consumer Forum. And this Consumer Commission, when you approach their judgments, because the stakes will not be very high, there will be a probability of the builder or the supplier to meet those requirements meet those orders. But when delivery is not happening, there is a big default, a number of projects are pending, then in that scenario, it will be just to create one more step. One can definitely go to file a complaint under Consumer Protection Act, may get the judgments also, and finally then this builder declares that I don't have any money, as in case of RERA, and then again it comes under insolvency. So a stitch in time.
Yeah.
One has to take a very conscious decision.
So thank you, Goel Saab. Now I think the conclusion that we all have drawn amongst our partners, that Consumer Protection Act is useful when there is any single or a few buyers who are suffering, and not the entire lot, not the entire company, and not all the allottees. If any, for any person, for any allottee, if there is a delay in possession, if then he can get an order. In case there is a quality issues, he can get an order. And however, the refund, of course, can be taken by anyone, because maybe even the all allottees can go to consumer protection, consumer courts, and they can get refund orders. But those refund orders are having no meaning, because in case there is one or two refund orders, that would be honored by the builder or builder company. However, in case everyone is seeking a refund, then these refund orders have got no meaning, because these refund orders will never get implemented. So Consumer Protection Act also is a very, very restrictive use as far as the home buyers are concerned. And now I think Mr. Goyal is going to discuss about the Arbitration and Conciliation Act. Yes, Mr. Goyal.
And in the arbitration and conciliation, as we know that in all the builder-buyer agreements, there is arbitration clause. In case of any dispute, the matter will be referred to an arbitrator to be appointed by the builder. And in case the buyer or the allottee does not agree for the arbitrator, he may also nominate one arbitrator. And the provisions of Arbitration and Conciliation Act says that this arbitration bench will be having members not in even numbers. Either it will be 1 or 3. Then those 2 arbitrators will be appointing 1 more arbitrators to decide the matter. And when there is a default, this is visible, and the default is due to reasons now beyond the control of the service provider. The moot point here is, he is having a resourceful person. There is some dispute. For the dispute, you take him to arbitration. Some independent person is arbitrating, taking a decision, and then he will be willing to implement it. You will be willing to accept it. But the moot question is, if he do not have the resources, how he will be able to meet those requirements? How he will be able to meet those requirements? And even if you get an arbitration award, again, getting the money will not be there. And it is even a more cumbersome process, in the sense that the provision says it hearings can be held on day-to-day basis. It has to be done expeditiously, but the timelines may be 12 months. It may be extended to 18 months. So the home buyer who has already taken a loan to book a flat, and with the delay, EMI payments has already started, then how he will be finding more money to meet the expenses connected with the arbitration? And at the end, when he knows that this builder is in problem, will not be able to pay, what will be the benefit of getting that arbitration award? Again, it will lead to resolution of insolvency. Because if he is solvent, there will be very little problem. With little persuasion, the builder will be coming forward to solve your problems. But if he is not solvent, the builder is not solvent, the problem will precipitate and take you towards insolvency resolution process only.
So I think as far as the arbitration is concerned, this arbitration is also practically beneficial in very, very special circumstances, and not in all the home buyers cases. There are some documentation differences, some dates differences, some interest disputes, some possession disputes. So there are some different disputes which can be handled under arbitration. But whereas if there is a general delay in handing over the possession, if there is a general issue of non-compliances by the builder for all the allottees, all these issues actually cannot be solved through Arbitration Act. See, we also get queries from home buyers like, why don't you invoke Competition Commission of India Competition Act 2002? We also feel that Competition Act is helpful to home buyers, but that is only on kind of general issues which are being dominated by the builder, maybe in drafting agreements or in communicating their terms and conditions, and where everything is one-sided. When there is a delay, they would be giving 5 rupees per month per square feet. But if there is a delay in making payment, they might even charge 18% or even 24% per annum interest to home buyers. So these are the kind of issues which can be taken to Competition Commission of India under the Competition Act 2002. The complaint can be filed by the home buyers to CCI, and those primarily would be the issues which are anti-competitive practices, dominant practices, and the Competition Commission of India would pass on necessary directions to builders so that this kind of malpractices or kind of monopolistic practices are stopped, or unfair practices, unfair conditions are stopped. So there is a judgment in the case of B-Layer Owners Association versus DLF Limited, and that's in the case of Huda project. The Competition Commission of India have extensively dealt, and they actually have disregarded the and they highlighted the malpractices in the agreement, unfair conditions imposed on the buyers, right to change layout plans without allotting consent, unequal bargaining power between the parties. Like, see, in some of the cases, the builders say that you cannot sell your property without taking NOC from me, even if the title has been transferred. So why NOC is required when everything has been transferred? It is a freehold property. Why NOC is required? So all these are monopolistic conditions, and also can be handled in these kind of circumstances. In some larger cases, we understand that even 630 crores of penalty was awarded against DLF in some cases. However, the general issue of delayed possession, general issues of default by the builders, those cannot be handled by Competition Commission of India. Similarly, the other civil laws where
sir, here I would like to add one thing. These provisions of RERA, Consumer Protection Act, arbitration, or the Competition Commission of India, their judgments and various matters can be a useful tool to support your case when you proceed under IBC, because certain things have been decided and declared. Their efficacy is left to testing. But yes, certain things are there. They are quoted, and when the matters are escalated at higher levels under IBC, and in case it goes to High Court and Supreme Court, these judgments becomes very, very important and critical. That point I want to.
Certainly. So even in the case of, there are some lawyers, they go to civil courts under Code of Civil Procedures 1908 for kind of summary suits, or filing a suit for recovery, or for special reliefs under Special Relief Act. See, according to our experience, these procedures are tardy and time consuming and expensive, and would not finally give results to the home buyers. See, like, I think when we go for, we attend various meetings of home buyers and they address a question, like they only try to tell us, why don't you file a criminal complaint against the builder? So you are the resolution professional, so you file the criminal complaint and you get him arrested under this cheating, fraud. So I think, Ankit, you have done some research on the criminal remedies available to the home buyers. Would you be able to share your experience or search with the participants today?
So my thought process is that the IPC does allow any possible action against cheating, fraud, criminal breach of trust, cheating and dishonesty, and this normally translates into an FIR which is lodged against the builder. And when this FIR is registered, it is one of the reasons for a solvent and a well-to-do builder to take cognizance of this fact and try and expedite the project. But where a builder already has 10 or 20 cases against their names, they're already through the process of planning for all such cases. There might be some scenario where the home buyer has been successful in lodging a claim, lodging an FIR against a builder. and there might be some 20, 25 such successes for the same builder and for the same project. But we need to understand, what does that lead to? What does that create? So in our experience, when we look at uh, those builders who have 20, 25 cases on them, they start seeing it as if it is a legal expense, it is a protective expense that they have to incur to stay overground and not go underground. We also see some builders who did go underground to prevent some arrests, prevent some actions against them. But the main idea, that the house should get completed, the house that or the building should get completed, does not proceed, because the energy of the promoter, the energy of the company is still going into saving the promoter. And I believe that starts happening. When that starts happening, then the basic idea that I believe every home buyer is interested in is to get the home completed, get the property completed, whether it is to sell it off at a later date and get the investment, redeem the investment, or stay in the same house. That objective, in my opinion, is not met where the builder is already sick. So I think I will just conclude with that, and maybe if there is any question, I can take it up.
I think, Ankit, thank you very much. So what do you conclude in case we take criminal actions against builder, director, and how does it benefit the home buyers?
The benefit is, perhaps the benefit will go to the first few home buyers who are successful in doing this, because as long as the promoter is interested in saving himself from many litigations, he will try and give money back, try and get the settlement done for the amount that he's collected from a home buyer who has been able to collect the money. But when you see that the home buyer, the case or the promoter is already gone underground, the promoter has faced some arrest, at that point in time it becomes ineffective, and it is no longer results into a settlement or getting the home, or getting the money back. No.
So I think very well, Ankit. Thank you very much that you have now you deliberated what exactly benefit to the home buyers for getting their possession. It is very correct that first few home buyers who actually take the lead and try to file criminal complaints. So the builder normally they avoid this kind of spreading in the market that the criminal complaints have been filed against the builder. So first few, till the time the builder is still having some circulation of money, they might get benefited. But then when the default is a larger size default, then the builder would not, because then builder would be helpless. Even if he is arrested, he would be helpless because he would not be able to give back the money by way of refund, or he would not be able to complete the construction in that manner in case he is under stress. So that also, to our understanding, is not a remedy available to the home buyers at large. So we have now we are trying to say that when we talk about all these different remedies available to home buyers, these are different scenarios where these remedies are helpful, but generally where the default size is larger, when the project is delayed and the construction is completed to a substantial extent, then these remedies would not work in favor of the home buyers. And ultimately, the insolvency law would have to be invoked for the resolution of the project, resolution of the builder in a larger manner. So while we are saying this, we also need to now see and how we have to explain how the insolvency and bankruptcy code would help builders. Although the time we had only taken time for 1 hour today, and we are already at 5 o'clock. So to all the panelists today, what should we do? Either we extend it for 15 minutes, and within 15 minutes we explain the latest developments in insolvency law and the way we find the resolutions under the insolvency law, or you say that it should be converted into a part 2 for the entire insolvency, which can be explained for home buyers as IBC. So because like in 15 minutes, whatever research we have done in detail, that would not be shared, that would not be deliberated, and we also need to discuss. So what I propose is that more than an hour is very difficult. So we can actually again convert this part into part 2 of this subject, that insolvency is the best remedy available to insolvency law, and we all will deliberate this in the in the next week, and the timing and it will be day would be announced. We can take some of the questions now, because as we have said that there are some questions, and we would conclude this discussion in the part 2, and that actually would be more beneficial. Otherwise, we would have to skip the entire insolvency, because I think the panelists have prepared their subject intensely, and they have deliberated it, the kind of benefit that they can have. I think there are some questions from in case it can be read. Ankit, are you there? Okay. So we can take up some questions. Yes.
So there are a few questions. Ankit, are you there?
No, I think I can even take up the questions. You can take up the question, another one. I can take the one. First question is, can AOA be registered if project is incomplete and CC has not been obtained? If yes, then under which act? Now the question is very clear, Anandji, that the Association of Allottees can be registered if the project is incomplete and the completion certificate has not been obtained, and if yes, under which act? So to my understanding, the Association of Allottees, there are two concepts of Association of Allottees. One concept is that is for the purpose of maintenance, when the 50% plus allottees are given possession, when 50% plus allottees are given possession in a project, then it is mandatory that the builder will facilitate forming of an AOA. So that's an AOA which is as defined under the kind of Resident Welfare Association or under RERA. Now, what we are talking about is the Association of Allottees, where the project is not complete, completion certificate is not available, and they are filing they can be registered as a society under the Societies Registration Act. They can apply to RERA as the Association of Allottees, and they can fight for the possession, and then the RERA would entertain them looking into this scenario.
I'll just like to add to that, Anilji. Even in case of IBC, which we'll discuss in the next part 2 of this, society or association registered under Societies Act would become eligible for filing the resolution plan also. So they can become eligible to be a resolution applicant. It is not necessary that they should get registered only under RERA.
Yes, even any society, they can actually become an entity. It's a legal entity. They can submit a resolution plan in the case of any builder. So the other question is, can during the CIRP the project be handed over back to the builder promoter to complete the housing project? I think Mr. Suresh Srivastava is talking about the reverse insolvency, and this reverse insolvency in the case of Winter Hill. In the case of Winter Hill, the scenario was different. The project was close to completion, and the promoter applied to NCLT that you please give me an opportunity. The project only needs 50 crores. I would complete during the CIRP itself, and I would hand over the possession. So NCLT.
However, sir, I'll just, sorry to interject, Nanji. However, the NCLAT ruled there that the promoter can only enter the reverse CIRP scenario as a lender, outside lender, and give assistance to the RP to complete the project. I'm just going to specific GG.
And it was also held in the same manner. that the once the project is handed over, the possession is handed over, then the company can go back to the promoters, because this is called the reverse insolvency, because it is the different way that the insolvency has been resolved. But then in that case, this 50 crore, the 50 crore was 50 crore was given by the promoter, and it was also given a priority. It was considered as interim finance. So that was the condition of the promoter, that in case of any failure, this particular money that I'm going to bring, it will be considered as an interim finance. Goel Sahab, you can also take another question, which is under IBC, are home buyers under obligation to report default to information utility? It is now mandatory that all the financial creditors are supposed to inform to information utility the defaults. And the information is very simple, and mostly it is applicable to the financial creditors, secured financial creditors, banks and financial institutions. However, is it mandatory for the home buyers? I still feel that it is not mandatory to the home buyers, because this NSEL, like in fact, he was again discussing in one meeting with us that we should promote reporting default on IU by the home buyers. So that is also not mandatory, but certainly this can be one of the tool to one of the document to be relied upon for reporting default. So I think there are some further questions also.
I have one suggestion, just a small suggestion, Anilji and Umeshji. Let's take one question from each of the audience first, and then go to a repeat question or second, third question of same person.
Yes. Very true. And sir, my take on this previous question was that any reporting to information utility and the record available from it becomes more dependable, and they have a very laid down procedures, because if some default is reported to information utility, they have a procedure to call for the comments from the other party also. And in case they do not report back, then by default it is also accepted. So reporting to information utility will be definitely a better option, and it should be done. And sir, may I take the next question? If the RP does not perform his duties honestly and connives with the builder to siphon off funds from CIRP, can RP be prosecuted under IPC? And is there any requirement or permission from NCLT for prosecuting the RP? Here I would like to say that RP is in a very different situation. He is a regulated person. He is a responsible person, regulated by the regulations. IBBI is there to attend all the matters of disciplinary and other things. But before concluding on the role of RP or his honesty and connivance, one need to verify the facts of the cases, because if RP is not able to attend to the point put forward by a particular group of stakeholders, operational creditors or financial creditors, his first and foremost duty is to abide by the law, IBC. And he is very, very conscious about it. And in case there is anything, if someone concludes that yes, there is something amiss in his role behavior, then definitely there are provisions he can go to IBBI, which is the regulated authority. And there is no question of jumping to a situation of going into IPC, because provisions are already there in IBC to refer the matter to IBBI. That is my call, sir, on this question.
I think we can take up the next questions also, because extending beyond 1 hour, 10, 12 minutes, would actually not be advisable. So we will take up the other questions also in the part 2 of this subject. So that actually would be certainly more detailed, and there would not be any hurry. So with the same panelist at the time and the because that would be a very, very interesting deliberations. What are the latest in the home buyers cases? What are the difficulties that we have experienced or our other partners have experienced, or the based on the various orders of the courts? So that kind of research that we have collated together, and since the subject was how the IBC is better, so today we have seen the remedies available under RERA, remedies available under consumer courts, under the civil procedures, under the criminal procedure, under the competition law, under the arbitration law. So we have seen the 6 remedies available, and now the one remedy which is the largest. And with all the latest developments, we will be coming back to all of you next week, either on Saturday or on Sunday, depending upon the availability of all the panelists. So we would inform you, and this is the way that we learn. This is the way that we learn, and our objective of doing these webinars is only my way of learning. So again, I will hand it over to Mr. Umesh Goel for giving concluding remarks, and also for giving thanks to all the participants.
Sir, as you rightly said, and in the today's deliberation, the topic of best resolution to home buyers, the first part has been established very well, that the other remedies available to the home buyers are not beneficial. They may be useful to the limited extent where there is a very good buyer, is a listed entity with a very good market perception, then one can resort to solitary cases and they will listen to it. But if the solvency is at stake, then that will not be the good solution. And ultimately, when we move towards the final and the viable option for solution of problems of the home buyers, then it comes under IBC, where home buyers are financial creditors. They are a class of creditors. Their exposure is very high. And in quite good number of cases, they will be having a very good say in the commercial wisdom of the committee of creditors. So my thank you to all the participants, to all the panelists for sparing their time and making this discussion a very, very successful. My thanks to Anil Goel, Ankit Goel, and Anand Sonbatraji. Their deliberations has benefited me a lot and all the participants. I look forward to interact with all the participants in the second part of this webinar in next week, and details of which will be communicated to all the participants who have registered on this webinar. And my request that we have created a special page on our website, insolvencyandbankruptcy.in, for the home buyers. You can go there, you can register your points, you can register your details. In case you have any question, our team will connect with you, will understand the issues, and will try to provide a very, very practical and justifiable solution, so that there is a solution to home buyers' problems. And AAA insolvency is available here, so providing a meaningful solution to all the participants, to all the home buyers. With these, I thanks all.
So thank you very much, Umeshji. Like, I would also like to say that we have created a application on our website, which is www.insolvencyandbankruptcy.in, where all the RERA projects are listed. So you have just, in case you are a home buyer who is suffering from any kind of default by the builder, it is not you that who would actually be gathering 100 or 10% of the allottees. It is our job to provide you a platform where all of you can register, and then we will spread around people so that we get 100 people to file an application against the builder. So that kind of facility has been created on our website. Please do visit that website, and please do register your complaint. So we will attend to this. So you will not have to go pillar to post. It will be our job to collate all 100 or 10% of the allottees for taking action against the defaulting builders. Thank you very much and have a very good evening to all of you.
And happy Holi to all the participants, the Holi of joy and colors.
Happy Holi.
Thank you, sir. Happy
Thank
Holi.
you. We conclude. Thank you.